Hello guys, welcome to the DMS online school. In today's video, we are going to revise biology paper 2 theory, the paper that was written in 2021. The paper reads Examinations Council of Zambia, examinations for General Certificate of Education Ordinary Level. Alright, so guys, if you're new to this channel, you're most welcome. And on this channel, I teach mathematics, biology, science, English, and also revise past examination papers just as I'm doing now. So without further ado, let's just get started. Alright, so this is the section A, which reads short answer questions, 45 marks. Answer all the questions in the spaces provided on the question paper. So question number 1 reads, the diagram below is an incomplete reaction for a certain characteristic of living things. Okay, so we have substance F plus oxygen produces carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. A part 1 says identify substance F. All right, so if we have substance F, then it reacted with oxygen, then it producing carbon dioxide, water, and energy, then this substance F should be actually substance X. Substance F is glucose, a 6 carbon sugar that is the primary source of energy for living things. Yeah, so substance F here is actually glucose, and glucose is a 6 carbon sugar that is the primary source of energy for living things. All right, so let's proceed to part B, which says what characteristic of living things is illustrated by the reactions. Okay, so like which characteristic of living things is actually represented by this reaction. So the fact that this reaction is producing carbon dioxide, water, and energy, this reaction here actually represents respiration. All right. So B part 1 says which characteristic of living things produces substance F? Okay, so since substance F is actually glucose, so what characteristic of living things produces glucose? Okay, so you can either say photosynthesis, right? It's a process and a characteristic of a living thing, but the actual one is nutrition. So here we can say nutrition, e.g. photosynthesis. So we understand that that diagram is actually representing the substance F, which is glucose, is actually produced by a process which is under nutrition, and this process is photosynthesis. Okay, so part 2 here says name 3 uses of energy in living things. So energy is used in number 1, metabolism. So what is it? The sum of all the chemical reactions that occur in a living thing. The number 2 use is in movement. So here we are saying muscles use energy to contract and relax, which allows us to move. Then part 3, we are saying growth and repair. Energy is needed to build new cells and repair damaged ones. Then C part 1 says what type of metabolic reaction is illustrated in the diagram above. So that diagram that we already looked at, what type of metabolic reaction is illustrated. So in that reaction is just the breaking down. So if glucose is being broken down using oxygen to produce water, carbon dioxide, and energy, then that is actually a breaking down reaction, which is known as a catabolic reaction. So catabolic reaction, a reaction which breaks down complex molecules into simpler ones, releasing energy in the process. And then here we are seeing respiration is an example of a catabolic reaction. So guys, if you're enjoying this video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't yet subscribed, consider clicking on the red subscribe button below so that whenever I post videos like this, YouTube will be able to notify you. All right, and let me take this opportunity to announce to you that guys, there is a revision package for biology past papers from 2015 to 2022 going at the 60 questions. So for those interested in the revision package, which can equip them with the knowledge on how to answer biology questions from section A, paper 2, and the section B, then you have just to call me on the number that I'm going to put on the screen so that you can be able to buy at 60 kwacha the revision package so that you can get a distinction in biology. All right, so let's proceed with the revision. Okay, so part two here says state one characteristic of living things which does not take place throughout the life of a living thing. So one characteristic of living thing that does not take place throughout the life of a living thing is actually growth. Okay, so we are saying growth does not take place throughout the life of a living thing. Once an organism reaches maturity, it stops growing and developing. Yeah, so let's proceed to the next question here. So this is question 2, which says figure 2 shows the stages involved in an enzyme catalyzed reaction inside cells of a living body. Okay, so we have figure 2 here, which we have in which we have stage 1 here where we have this structure I and these structures G and H, and then we have stage 2 here and then stage 3 here. Then part A here says from stage 1 in figure 2 identify them part 1 enzyme. So from here, stage 1 here, right, we need to identify what the enzyme is between G, H, and I. So the enzyme here is I. Okay, so this is an enzyme, guys. Then part 2 substrate. Okay, so substrate are these two things here that are being combined to produce one substance here. So G and H. So you can say G or H. Any of these can qualify to be a substrate. So let's proceed to the next question. B part 1 says which stage shows the enzyme substrate complex. So from these which we have here, which structure here, so from stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3, we need to identify the structure or the stage which represents an enzyme substrate complex. So it is actually stage 2 here, which shows the substrate and the enzyme combined together, or rather the substrate bound to or binding to the enzyme. So whenever a substrate and the enzyme bind together, then that stage is what we call the enzyme substrate complex. All right, so here we are going to send the answer as stage 2. Then part 2 here says label the active site of the enzyme in figure 2. So the active site of the enzyme in figure 2 here is okay, I didn't label here, so it should be just here. So I think, let me just reverse. So this is the part I labeled. So this part, which has got these shapes here, it is what we call the active site. Yes, so part C, part 1 says what type of metabolic reaction is catalyzed in the enzyme in figure 2. So what type of catabolic reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme in figure 2? So that we are seeing that in this figure here, what we are seeing is two separate substrate being bonded together to form one substance. Okay, so there is a combination or joining of two smaller parts to form one big molecule, or two smaller molecules to form one big molecule here. So such a reaction here has got a different name, as we are going to see. So when they say what type of metabolic reaction is characterized by the enzyme in figure 2 here, we are going to say this is anabolic reaction. Okay. Then part two here is name a region in the human body where such a metabolic reaction in part C, part 1 above can occur. So like anabolic reaction, in which part of the human body or region of the human body can it occur? So it can occur in the liver. Then part 3 says state the general term used to refer to enzymes that work inside cells. So we need to state the general term that is used or used to refer to enzymes that work inside cells. So the general term used to refer to enzymes that work inside cells is actually intracellular enzymes. Then this says describe two industrial applications of enzymes. So one industrial application of enzyme is that in food processing. So here enzymes are used to break down complex molecules in food, making them easier to digest. Then number two, we are saying brewing. So enzymes are used to convert starch into sugar in the brewing processing. Yeah, so there's so many uses of enzymes. So if you go through our revision package, actually, you'll come across so many types of questions that have ever come from 2015 to 2022. And this video is just a sample of them so that you know how the package goes. So I advise you to get this package at only 60 kwacha so that you can use it to prepare yourself to write the examination, because some questions are actually repeated. So you will have an opportunity to go through this revision, and when you come across those questions repeated in this year's exam, it will be easy for you to pass with a distinction. All right, so let's proceed, and if you're enjoying, give it a like and let me know in the comment section. All right, so this is question 3. Figure 3 shows part of an organ of a plant. Okay, so this is figure 3 here with the parts K, J, I, H, G here. Then A part 1 says identify structures G and K. So where is G? G is here and K is here. So G is upper epidermis here, and then K, which is this part here, is guard cell. All right, so let's proceed. Then part 2 says state one structural difference between structures G and H. So we need to know one structural difference between G and H. So between G and H. So what one structural difference can we see between these two? Is it G and H? So let me check. Yeah, between G and J. I mean, state one structural difference between structures G and J. Okay, it is between G and J here, G and J. So this is actually the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis. So yeah, so we have to understand that one structural difference is that G has less stomata compared to J. Okay, so when you compare G, which is this part here, so G here and J here, we are saying that G has actually less stomata as compared to J here. So J would have more stomata or opening, while G will have less stomata or openings. All right, so then B says identify the plant organ in figure 3. So this figure 3 here, what plant organ is it, or is it found in? Okay, so here you must understand that this is actually a leaf. Okay, then C part 1 says in which labeled region in figure 3 is the rate of photosynthesis highest? So in which labeled region in figure 3 is the rate of photosynthesis highest. So when we come to this labeled G, H, I, J, in which of these labeled figures or regions here is the rate of photosynthesis highest. So it is actually highest in H here. Okay, so it is highest in H. So put H here. Then they're saying give a reason for your answer. So the reason is that region H contains palisade mesophyll layer, which is uh, located directly below the epidermis um, to allow it to receive more sunlight than layers of the leaf. Okay, yeah, so region H contains palisade mesophyll layer, which is located directly below the epidermis to allow it to receive more sunlight than other layers of the leaf. When we check here, so you will discover that this region H is actually below this layer here G, which means that it receives more, it is closer to the site of, or rather it directly receives sunlight energy, which is needed for photosynthesis. Hence, we expect photosynthesis to be high in this region. Apart from that, we had to put another reason here that um, that the parasite mesophyll cells also contain many chloroplasts, which are the organelles where photosynthesis takes place. Yep. So the parasite mesophyll cells contain many chloroplasts, which are the organelles where photosynthesis take place. So when you check here, you discover that this layer contains the parasite cells. So the parasite cells contains a lot of chloroplasts here where photosynthesis takes place from. So because of these two combination directly under the mesophyll, under the epidermis to receive direct light, and also having the parasite cells with a lot of chloroplasts, you expect region H to have the highest rate of photosynthesis. All right, so let's proceed. Then we come to the next question here, D, which says explain why the arrangement of cells in the region labeled I is important for photosynthesis. So we need to explain why the arrangement of cells in this region I here is important for photosynthesis. So here we are going to say that it creates large spaces in region I to provide an easy passage through which carbon dioxide can diffuse. Yeah. So that arrangement of cells in region I is important for photosynthesis. Why? Because it creates large spaces in region I to provide an easy passage through which carbon dioxide can diffuse. So not only that, because it's 2 marks, also is because that there is a presence of a network of veins in region I to provide a good water supply to the photosynthesizing. Yeah, there is a presence of a network of veins in region I to provide a good water supply to the photosynthesizing cells. So as you can see here, here in this region we have veins here. So these can also produce can provide, water to synthesizing cells. All right, so let's proceed. So we come to question 4, which says figure 4 shows a human elbow joint in longitudinal section. Okay, so this figure 4 here shows a human elbow joint in longitudinal section. So with these parts A, B, C, D, E. So A says name the parts labeled A, B, and D. So what are these parts labeled here? So for us to understand here, you compare this with the this diagram here. So when you look at this diagram, it has these parts. This outer part here is joint capsule or capsule. Then after that you have what? You have this layer inside, which is the synovial membrane. Then after that you have this compact bone. Then you have this face here, which is called articulate or articular cartilage. Yeah, then spongy, what, bone. Yeah, yeah. So basically, if you compare this, inside there you have a joint cavity which contains synovial fluid. Yeah. So basically, this diagram is similar to this, though this was not well drawn. So when they say name the parts labeled A, B, and C, like this part A here, it is called the articular cartilage. Then this part labeled B there, it is called synovial membrane. Then this part here labeled C is called the joint capsule. I don't know how to pronounce this, guys. So I don't know if it is capsule or capsule. I don't know, but at least you can see it as it is there. So let's proceed to the other part of the question, which is part B. Says give one function of each part in A above. So those parts which we have already looked at, these parts here, we need to give the function of each of these here. Okay, so if we start with the articulate cartridge, we are saying articulate cartridge reduces shock at the end of the bones. Then B here, which is synovial membrane, secretes synovial fluid. Then C here, which is joint capsule, encloses the joint membrane. Yeah, so that's what it does. Those are the functions. Then part C, part 1 says which part D or E can be affected by cancer of the bone. So when we come to this part here, so they're saying which part E and D can be affected by cancer of the bone. So here you must understand that the part which can be affected by cancer of the bone is actually E here. Then part 2 says name the part affected by cancer. Name the part affected by cancer of the bone in C part 1 above. So when we look at this figure here, which part is this part here, which is E, what part is this called? So here you need to understand that this is actually bone marrow. Then D says name the type of joint shown in figure 4 above. So we need to understand what type of joint is this. So you must understand that this joint here is actually hinge joint or synovial joint. Okay, so let's proceed to question 5A, part 1, which says name 2 traits in plants which show discontinuous variation. So here we can say flower color, e.g. peas can have either purple or white flowers. Then number 2 here we are saying seed shape, e.g. peas can have either smooth or wrinkled seeds. Then part 2 says state 2 factors which cause variation in animals. So factor number 1 is mutation. So we're saying mutation introduces new alleles or changes existing changes existing ones in existing ones. Yeah. Then part 2 here we are saying sexual reproduction. Here sexual reproduction shuffles and combines alleles to form from both parents here. So sexual reproduction here we are saying sexual reproduction shuffles and combines alleles from both the parents. Then this is actually B. So B was squeezed up here. So B we are saying in humans, black hair is dominant over blonde hair. Using letters B and the capital B and the small letter b, show using a genetic diagram why a male parent with black hair had some children with black hair and other children with blonde hair with his wife who had blonde hair. Okay, so this is actually genetics, guys. So we are told when we have like B and then we have like B here, we are told like this B should be for black and then this B should for blonde. So meaning whenever you have B, it means that there is actually B is dominant over actually the allele B. That's what we are told here that in humans, black hair is dominant over blondie. So using letters B capital and B small letter show using a genetic diagram why a male parent with black hair had some children with black hair and other children with blonde hair with his wife who had blonde hair. Yeah. So here, how to answer this is this: you come with parents, you have actually father's hair type, then you have also mother's hair type. Then after that, you need to look at the phenotype of the father's hair. So here the father's hair is black, and then the phenotype of mother's hair here it is actually blonde. Then the genotype, which is the genetic makeup, you find that the genetic makeup of the father, for the father to have other children to have blonde, meaning the father had actually the genotype of uh, B capital and small letter B. While the mother, if the mother was blonde, meaning the mother he had actually was homozygous with BB here. The father was heterozygous. So this is B. BB is the genetic makeup of the mother for her to have her blonde hair, because if the combination will be B and capital B, then it will be actually black. So for the father to have children that had the blonde hair and black, it means the father's combination actually was that of also B as capital and B small letter. Then B was actually header. I mean, capital B was actually dominant. Yeah. So now next we look at gametes, how gametes actually combine during fertilization. So find that the father's gamete in cells are divided, like this stands alone and this one stands alone. In the mother also this stands alone and this stands alone. So only half of it is actually combined during fertilization. So this can combine to form the first filial genotype of the children. F1 stands for first filial genotype of the first generation of the children. So like if this happens to cross with the actually B here, you have the combination of capital B and small letter b. If this also has to combine with that, still more we have a capital B combination and small letter b. If this has to combine with this, you have both a small letter b, and if this has to combine with that, still you have small letter b's like that. Then what we entail of this genotype is that it will produce a phenotype. So the phenotype of BB here, just like BB is black. So meaning this will have black appearance of hair and this one is black appearance of hair. But this one it's BB which is for blonde. So meaning here it is blonde hair and this one also here it is still blonde hair. So this is the more reason why the father would have those with black hair and those with the blonde hair. So using this genetic diagram that is actually shown. So yeah, let's move to section B now. Section B, essay questions 36 marks. Then it says answer any three questions from this section. All answers must be in complete sentences and in paragraphs. So write your answers in the separate answer booklet provided. So you see here there is an instruction which says that all answers must be in complete sentences and in paragraphs. So it doesn't really mean that if there are certain numbering that you need to do, you cannot do that. So there are certain questions that would require just creating a paragraph, then go ahead and create paragraph in those questions. Then there are certain questions that would require that you make complete sentences. That means that you would rather make paragraphs. That one also qualifies. So you're going to see the way we'll be answering these questions. So like question 6, which is the A, says define aerobic respiration. So we are going to answer. Okay, then part B says describe the production of adenosine triphosphate ATP in cells of living organisms. Then C says compare and contrast respiration in plants to that in human beings. So yeah. So in answering this, we'll start with this part one. So we will define like aerobic respiration is the cellular process of converting food into energy in the presence of oxygen. It is the most efficient type of cellular respiration, producing the most ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the energy currents of the cell. Aerobic respiration takes place in the mitochondria, which organelles found in the cytoplasm of cells. So you get 2 marks for this explanation. Then we got to B here. So B describe the production of adenosine or adenosine triphosphate in cells of living organisms. So we will say B. We are saying adenosine triphosphate is a form in which energy produced by respiration is stored. So during cellular respiration, glucose and oxygen are used to produce ATP through a series of reactions, which involves combining adenosine triphosphate with the inorganic phosphate as summarized by the reaction below. So in the reaction below, we have adenosine triphosphate combined with inorganic phosphate to form adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so we move on to another question, which was actually part C, which says compare and contrast respiration in plants to that in human beings. So such a question like this, you can put it in paragraphs. So we can move like respiration is the process of releasing energy from food molecules in both plants and animals. So plants make their own food by photosynthesis, which uses sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water to produce glucose and oxygen. Animals get their food by eating other animals. Both plants and animals use oxygen to break down glucose in their cells and produce ATP, which is the energy currents of the cell. Both plants and animals also release carbon dioxide as a byproduct of respiration. The main difference between respiration in plants and animals is that the plants do it mainly in the mitochondria, while animals do it in various organs such as the lungs, the heart, and the cells themselves. All right, so we are done with this. So we had only one paragraph. Then we move to the other question 7a, which says describe the internal structure of the heart. Then B, part 1 says explain the causes of coronary heart disease. Then part 2 says explain ways of preventing coronary diseases. So such questions like these two ones here, you may not put them in paragraph where you need to pinpoint the actually causes and prevention. So we are going to start with A here. So we are going to describe the structure of the heart. So here we are saying the heart consists of 4 chambers, namely 2 atria, which are left atrium and right atrium, and 2 chambers, ventricles, which are left ventricle and right ventricle. The heart is divided into right and left sides by a muscular wall called the septum. Then the heart also contains valves which are responsible for keeping blood flowing in one direction by preventing backflow. The valves found between the atria and ventricles are called arterial ventricular valves. The one on the right side is called the tricuspid valve, while the one on the left side is called the bicuspid valve. Then those found between the ventricles and the arteries are called semilunar valves. Yeah, so this one had two paragraphs. This part which talks about the chambers of the heart, and this one which talks about the valves. Yeah. So we move on to B part one, explain the causes of coronary heart disease. So you can say that coronary heart disease, also known as coronary artery disease, is primarily caused by the buildup of fatty acids or deposits in the coronary artery, which supply oxygen and nutrients to the heart. So you can say the main cause include excessive intake of fatty acids, smoke, emotional stress, lack of exercise, etc. So then you can start explaining now one by one. Here you can say A, excessive intake of acids. You see fatty acids are easily converted to cholesterol, which in turn blocks coronary artery. So you got to explain how smoking also causes this. So smoking, you say cigarette smoke contains a stimulant called nicotine, which tends to promote the accumulation of cholesterol in the blood. Smoking also damages the lining of the arteries and makes them more prone to atherosclerosis. So this is atherosclerosis. Then C, we are saying emotional stress. So the body secretes high levels of adrenaline during emotional stress. This also tends to promote accumulation of cholesterol in the bloodstream. Stress can also raise blood pressure and heart rate, which put more strain on the heart. Okay. Then D, we are talking of lack of exercise. So here say lack of exercise increases the risk of coronary heart disease by making the heart less efficient and more vulnerable. Yeah. So outlining them like that is quite also logical, especially if you list them out there, then you explain them in an outline way like that. All right, so let's go to the other part which talks about explain ways of preventing coronary disease. So here we are saying that preventing coronary heart disease involves adopting a lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle. So which lifestyle? Part A, dietary changes. Consume a diet low uh, in saturated and trans fats, cholesterol, salt, and added sugar. Yeah, so consume a diet low in saturated and trans fats, cholesterol, salt, and added sugar. Then increase fiber-rich food, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Then B, regular exercise. So engage in regular physical activity to maintain a healthy weight, improve cholesterol levels, and reduce blood sugar. Then C, smoking termination. So quit smoking and avoid exposure to secondhand smoke to reduce the risk of arterial damage. Okay, then we move on to the next part, which is question 8, which says explain using a named explain a explain using named examples the following terms. So part 1 we have cranial reflex, part 2 conditioned reflex, then part 3 spinal reflex, then B explain why each of the following reflex actions are important to the body of an organism. Then part 1 says the cranial reflex, then part 2 conditioned reflex. Then part C, describe how an impulse is transmitted from one neuron to another. So we'll start by answering the first one here. So we are trying to explain using named examples the following term like cranial reflex. So here we are going to say that Cranial reflex is a reflex that is controlled by one of the cranial nerves and tends to take place in the brain. An example is the closing of pupil in the presence of bright light. Yeah, so that is it. Then we go to the other part, which is conditioned reflex. So here we are saying that conditioned reflex is a reflex that is learned through repeated association of a stimulus with a response. An example is salivating when hearing a bell that signals food. Yeah. Then we go to the other one, which is spinal reflex. So here we are saying um, that that the spinal reflex is a reflex that involves only the spinal nerves and is not processed by the brain. An example is the knee jerk reflex that occurs in response to activation of the muscle spindle stretch receptors. Okay. Then next we move to the part B, which says explain why each of the following reflex actions are important to the body of an organism, like part one cranial reflex, part two conditioned reflex. So we are going to say cranial reflex is important because it enables an organism to blinking. Okay, it enables an organism to blink. Okay, so here it should be to blink when an object approaches the eye to prevent an eye from injury. Yeah. Then we come to be here. We are saying conditioned reflex are important for adapting to new situations and learning new behaviors. Yeah. Then we move to the other question, C, which said describe how an impulse is transmitted from one neuron to another. So here we are going to say neurons communicate with each other by transmitting electrical impulses. These impulses are generated at the axon hillock. The impulse travels down the axon and is released at the synapse. When the impulse reaches the synapse, it triggers the release of neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters diffuse across the synapse gap and bind to receptors on the dendrite of the next neuron. If enough neurotransmitter bind to receptors, an impulse will be generated in the next neuron. Yeah, so this is the explanation to this straightforward. So if you are enjoying and learning, finding value in this revision, please consider giving this video a like because it is going to do well in the YouTube algorithm, and also comment in the comment section. And if you haven't yet subscribed, consider subscribing on the red subscribe button there. All right, so let's proceed. So the next part of the question 9 says explain the importance of fungi, then be distinguished between sexual and asexual reproduction. Then C, with the named examples, describe the features of animal dispersed seeds. So here you are going to say, okay, part A, you are going to say fungi are important in the following ways. So part one, you are going to say fungi are important decomposers in most organisms. They break down organic matter and recycle nutrients in the soil. Then part two, fungi form mutualism associations with plants called mycorrhiza, which enhances plant growth and survival. Then important number three, we are going to say fungi are sources of food and beverage for humans, such as mushrooms, cheese, bread, beer, and wine. Then important number four, we are saying fungi produce substances that have medicinal uses such as antibiotics, immunosuppressants, and statins. Then important number five, we are saying fungi can be used as biological insecticides to control pests without harming the environment. Then we go to part B here, which says distinguish between sexual and asexual reproduction. So here you are going to say in sexual reproduction, two parents contribute genetic information to produce unique offspring. The offspring have a mix of genes from both parents. As a result, offspring have a different set of traits compared to either parent. In sexual reproduction, a single parent produces offspring. The offspring have the same genes as the parent and therefore the same inherited traits such as the parent. There is no mixing or recombination of genes in asexual reproduction. All right, so that is it. Then we move to the next part of the question, which is C, which says with named examples, describe the features of animal displaced seeds. So you can say that the animal displaced seeds are characterized by features that attract animals to eat them on transport or transport them to new locations. Some common features of animal displaced seeds include part one, bright colors. So you're saying animals are often attracted to bright colors. So some seeds have bright colored fruit or areas that attract animals to eat them. For example, the fruits of the strawberry and the raspberry are brightly colored and attract birds and other animals. Then part two, edible fresh. So some seeds have edible fresh that attract animals to eat them. For example, the fruits of the many trees and shrubs have edible fresh that is eaten by birds and other animals. Then part three, hooks or bulbs. So some seeds have hooks or bulbs that attach to animal fur or feathers and are transported to new location. For example, the seeds of the burdock plant have hooks that attach to fur and feathers. Then five, wings or parachutes. So you are saying some seeds have wings or parachutes that allow them to be carried by the wind to new location. For example, the seeds of the dendron and maple have wings that allow them to be carried along distances by the wind. Yeah, so we move to question number 10a, which says explain the meaning of the term conservation. Then B, identify the importance of conserving plant and animals. Then is C, describe the importance of sustainable use of resources. All right, so here we are going to say conservation is the practice of using natural resources responsibly so that they can be used and enjoyed by future generations. It involves protecting and restoring habitats and managing wildlife populations sustainably and reducing our consumption of resources. Yeah, so that is conservation. Then we move to part B. It says identify the importance of conserving plant and animals. So here we are going to say that conserving plant and animal species is important because they provide food, medicine, and raw materials, as well as balance and stabilize the nature's processes such as pollination, decomposition, and climate regulation. They also contribute to human well being, education, culture, and recreation. Yeah. Then we come to part C here. It says describe the importance of sustainable use of resources. So here you can say sustainable use of resources is important because it helps to balance our need for resources with the finiteness of natural resources and the environmental risks associated with their over exploitation or mismanagement. It also helps to sustain in healthy ecosystem, live in harmony with nature and ease the strain on finite resources. Yeah, so we have come to the end of this biology revision. I hope it was helpful to you. If it was, please consider again giving this video a like if you haven't done so. If you have downloaded the video, actually go back to it and give it a like, because YouTube is just going to know that this video is very important. When you give it a like and you comment and also subscribe to the channel, you can share to as many friends in groups as possible. As for now, guys, bye and see you in the next revision.